Good evening, everyone. I know some people are still taking their seats. If you can do that, we're going to get started just in particular for our live webcast audience. Forgive a slight late start. I believe, and I'm just sourcing a security guy, that there was something called a POTUS freeze in Midtown. Yeah. Anyway. I'm Tom Nagorski. I'm the Executive Vice President here. Welcome to the latest in our very busy series of UN General Assembly programs. Thanks especially. I see some return visitors here. Denise Saul, great to see you, our trustee who was here for the Ken Burns Vietnam event this afternoon, so that's a double header, but thank you. We are pleased and honored this evening to welcome His Excellency Khawaja Muhammad Asif from Pakistan, to the Asia Society and members of the Pakistani delegation. We really appreciate your being here, and we're grateful that, traffic notwithstanding, you've made the time and the effort to join us in what's been a very, very busy time for you as well. Welcome also back to the Asia Society, who will join us on the stage, the great Pulitzer Prize-winning author, journalist, and since 2013, Dean of the Columbia School of Journalism, Steve Coll, who will be moderating the conversation. Welcome to you, Steve. And to our other guests, members of the diplomatic community, members of the Asia Society, and members of the press as well as those watching, as I said, beyond the room via the webcast. I said it's been a busy week. Just briefly, we've had here over the last few days, the president of Afghanistan has been with us, foreign ministers from Australia, the Philippines, Indonesia, have been here on our stage. If you missed any of these programs, you can find them at asiasociety.org. They've all been posted, and tomorrow we close out this busy season here with, we'll have Charlie Rose and the Foreign Minister of Iran, Javad Zarif, here at this hour tomorrow. Any further information, you can talk to our staff here or visit asiasociety.org. To tonight's event, I don't probably need to tell most in this room that our guest represents a country that throughout its relatively brief history as an independent nation has always played a pivotal role in the region and on the world stage, and a country with which we at the Asia Society have a long and proud history of collaborations and programs. We've welcomed your leaders, hosted exhibitions, and other cultural events and programs here. Most recently, we've been very pleased to be, I guess, a kind of home away from home for the Lahore Literary Festival. And we look forward to doing that in the future, one of the great cultural and political events in that country and now here in New York. And tonight, continuing this tradition, we welcome His Excellency, the Foreign Minister, to our stage. Given the recent political change and events in Pakistan, Muhammad Asif has been in office only since last month. We are particularly pleased to have you here so early in your term. He has served in several ministerial capacities before this one: Minister for Defense, for Water and Power, for Petroleum and Natural Resources, and Minister for Sports. His career in politics dates to 1991, when he became a senator in Pakistan, and before that, he enjoyed a successful career in banking. And in the last few days, Minister Asif has been active and outspoken, I think we can say, on several subjects, including Pakistan's relationship with Afghanistan, on U.S. aid to his country, and Pakistan's overall role in the global fight against terrorism. Most recently, in a post just on Sunday, he said, "We sacrifice our sons to defeat terror and to bring peace to our land. Let the world match our sacrifices." Tonight, the minister will deliver remarks, as is the pattern here, and then be joined on stage, as I said, by Steve Coll, who, in addition to his many gifts as a journalist and an author, is also a terrific moderator. We'll then open the floor in the time that remains for questions. A reminder, you should have cards on your seats. If you don't and you wish to send a question in, just raise your hand. We have staff to collect the cards. And one more reminder that as these other events are, the Twitter handle for this event is Asia Society Live. With that, please join me in a warm welcome for His Excellency, the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Khawaja Muhammad Asif. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Mr. Tom Nagroski, Executive Vice President of Asia Society, ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted to join you all to share my thoughts and my perspectives on Pakistan's vision for regional peace and security, the strategy that we have adopted and the challenges that we confront in realizing this vision. I will keep my remarks short so that we have more time for questions. Ladies and gentlemen, undoubtedly, we are living through extraordinary times. Today, violent extremism, anti-globalization sentiment, and xenophobia is on the rise. Tolerance, pluralism, mutual trust, and respect between states and community, and even individuals, is on the decline. It is in this broader and complex environment that Pakistan seeks to pursue its vision for peace, security, and stability in the region and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, the scourge of terrorism, violent extremism, and accompanying insecurity, stagnant economy, and severe energy shortfalls were Pakistan's principal challenges as we assumed the reins of government 4 years ago. For us, the starting point and the most urgent task at hand was to put our house in order. Looking back, I think we have done well in dealing with challenges that we inherited. On the security front, through a relentless military and law enforcement campaign, owned and supported by the people of Pakistan, the terrorists are put on the run. The terrorist networks were dismantled and their safe havens were destroyed. We have also launched a very effective and focused intelligence-led law enforcement campaign against terrorist sleeper cells across Pakistan. The success of our across-the-board and non-discriminatory operation is fully reflected in the improved security environment in Pakistan. Last year witnessed the lowest number of terrorist incidents in over a decade. International cricket has returned to Pakistan and internal tourism has witnessed a spike. Dear friends, the growing economic stability is another concrete manifestation of the government's single-minded pursuit of its multifaceted agenda for revival and reinvigorating Pakistan. Our economic growth has picked up, tax receipts have risen, inflation is under control with stable foreign remittance inflows and vibrant stock market. Today, Pakistan's economic upturn is being noted worldwide. Our credit ratings with Standard & Poor and Moody's have gone up 3 notches, while entities such as Forbes, Bloomberg, Nikkei describe Pakistan as Asia's next growth engine, a global turnaround story, and a best discovered frontier market. On the energy front, too, we have close to terminating for good the much criticized electricity blackouts for both industrial and domestic sectors. I have witnessed that. I was Minister of Water and Power, and I had to face a lot of hard time during the last 4 years. It's satisfying that our gap between supply and demand is closing. It's almost nil. In a couple of months, the load shedding and the blackouts will be a thing of past, inshallah. Ladies and gentlemen, even before earning the trust and confidence of the people of Pakistan for third unprecedented time in 2013, the present PMLN government was very serious and clear about pursuing peace and good neighborly relations in the region, which we viewed as the stepping stone for promoting internal security and prosperity in Pakistan. On assumption of government, we reached out to our immediate neighbors, Afghanistan, Iran, and India, with a message of peace, amity, respect, and cooperation for the benefit of the region. Ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan has suffered grievously from conflict and instability in Afghanistan. Unless this cycle is reversed, we would continue to bear the brunt. No country, therefore, has a larger stake in seeing peace and stability return to Afghanistan than Pakistan. Regrettably, the situation in Afghanistan is getting worse. Ungoverned spaces, violence, and drugs and narcotic trade is on the rise. This is a source of grave concern for Pakistan. We are mindful of the strong desire in US to bring the long war in Afghanistan to an end. We support this objective wholeheartedly and are ready to help in any way we could to achieve peace and stability in Afghanistan. Scapegoating Pakistan for all the Afghan ills is neither fair nor accurate. This will only help forces that we are trying to fight collectively. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no military solution for Afghanistan. Pakistan has in the past done all it could to facilitate a political settlement. We have also done all that we could make sure that Pakistani soil is not used against any country. However, there are obviously clear limits to what we can do. We cannot take responsibility for Afghanistan's peace and security and be asked to achieve what the combined strength of some of the most powerful and richest countries could not accomplish. Effective border management, frankly, is the key. More needs to be done on the Afghan side of the border where terrorist elements are finding easy, safe havens. We are keen to work with the US in effectively managing the Afghan border and in facilitating a peace process to the extent we can. Friends, the emergence of new threats, including ISIS, demands ever greater coordination and stronger partnerships between like-minded countries to put up a united front to counter these dark forces of exclusion and extremism. Friends, it is our deep conviction that peace in the neighborhood is impossible to achieve unless relations with India improve. Our government reached out to India to seek normalization of relations and resolution of all disputes, including the core issue of Jammu and Kashmir through dialogue and engagement. Unfortunately, our gestures of goodwill have not been reciprocated by India. Worse still, India has chosen to adopt confrontation and escalation over dialogue and engagement. The unprovoked violations on the LOC and working boundary, escalating political rhetoric, excessive use of force against unarmed civilians in the occupied Kashmir, and harassment of minorities, particularly Muslims, in India do not bode well for peace, reconciliation, and dialogue in South Asia. India cannot wish away Kashmir, nor can it delegitimize the genuine, indigenous, unarmed struggle of Kashmiris fighting for their right of self-determination by terming it as terrorism. Pakistan, for one, is ready to work with India to seek peaceful resolution of all disputes and to create an environment of peace and stability, allowing our people to realize their aspirations of prosperity and development. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the key pillars of government's foreign policy is to support and encourage greater regional integration and connectivity. The most promising element of this policy is the recently launched China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, a multi-billion-dollar initiative entailing multiple development and connectivity initiatives and projects, including infrastructure, energy, Gwadar Port, and industrial cooperation. There are other regional economic projects that remain on our agenda. These include TAPI, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India gas pipeline, and CASA, which is a Central Asian energy connectivity project funded by the World Bank, an improved trading partnership between Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Tajikistan. Ladies and gentlemen, within this scheme of things, the US remains our critical partner, and there are strong and enduring bases for this partnership to continue in the future. Both Pakistan and the US have strong convergences in fighting terrorism and working together to stop the spread of violent extremism espoused by ISIL. Similarly, peace and stability in Afghanistan is in our mutual interest, and the benefits accruing from a stable and secure region benefit the US as much as it benefits us. In our view, Pakistan and the US have always benefited when they work together. We are grateful for the US support to Pakistan in a broad range of areas. For many years, the US has been supportive of building Pakistan's capacity and helping us overcome our challenges. The US helped us deal with our electricity shortages, and US aid is supporting one of the largest Fulbright scholarship programs for Pakistan, especially for women. The US assistance in building infrastructure in remote areas such as FATA will leave an enduring impact in stimulating economic development in an area that had been infested with extremist ideology for decades. We wish to express our gratitude to the US and to American people for their support. Our large, active, and vibrant diaspora in US continue to be a very important bridge between our two countries. For the future, we hope that people-to-people exchanges would become the centerpiece of our relationship with trade, investment, education, and research as its driving links. While recognizing that US assistance has been beneficial in supplementing our own efforts for economic development, we wish our long-term partnership to be anchored on trade instead of aid. A close and enduring partnership between Pakistan and US is, we believe, a strategic imperative for achieving lasting peace and stability in the region and beyond. This is what we are working to secure with our friends and partners in US. I thank you. Thank you.
Minister, I think there's a chair with
Thank you.
with your name on it.
Oh, yes. I didn't see that.
Minister, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you, and to the audience, thanks for being here. Beautiful, balmy, late September evening. And we're going to talk up here for 25 minutes or so, maybe half an hour, and then we'll turn to your questions. But those can only reach us by index card. I already have a handful of them, so in the next 20 minutes or so, if you have a question you'd like me to pose to the minister or consider, just please pass it forward. So that was a very comprehensive and helpful talk. You understandably started and ended on the relationship with the United States, so let's start there as well. After you read or heard President Trump's speech in August, where he seemed to depart rhetorically in his criticism of Pakistan from the language of American leadership over the last few years by specifically saying he thought Pakistan needed to do more and specifically inviting India to do more in Afghanistan. What was your reaction?
Not very pleasant. The reaction of the government and the public at large was of utter disappointment, though not shocking. It was not unexpected. But it was unpleasant. If you allow me to retrace our relationship over many decades, I think in the 60s and then in the 80s, and then in the last decade, Pakistan has stood very firmly with US during the war against the Soviet Union in Afghanistan, which I personally believe was a wrong decision.
A wrong decision.
A wrong decision. It was a proxy war. We were used and discarded. In the 60s, we were in your camp, and the early 70s. If I remember correctly, I was very young at that time. The sanctions were imposed on us. Then again in early 90s, sanctions were imposed on us, the Pressler Amendment and all that. So despite all that, despite the heartbreaks, we still stood with you. But this time, coming out of Fort Myer, it wasn't very, not surprising, but disappointing and unpleasant. There was a reaction from the public opinion. And some of the things which were said were patently wrong, like the money, the billions of dollars which you have dished out to us. No billions of dollars have been dished out to us. That was money which was reimbursed for the services we rendered to the United States of America and its allies. Now that I don't want to go into detail. I'm here to mend fences.
I could tell.
Not bring down the fences, you know. So I should talk like a diplomat.
Yes, well, you did.
Only yesterday I was defense minister. So I'm trying to depart from the behavior of a defense minister to the behavior of a diplomat. Mm-hmm. So pardon Tom said my outspokenness. So I'll try to mellow it down a bit. But we have the main. When I was growing up, Pakistan was part of CETO and CENTO, and USAID was there at almost every corner of our national life, and we still value this relationship. It's not that we don't value this relationship.
Well, one thing that in the recent years, there was this also an experience of disillusionment in 2011, mutual disillusionment, I would say, after a period of great ambition in the relationship to try to forge a strategic partnership that would be of a different and more enduring character, and that sort of fell apart in 2011. There was a reduction of relations, but then things seemed to steady for a while.
It picked up.
And of course you deepened your relationship with China, which I do want to talk about. But do you believe that there really is a sustainable basis for a cooperative relationship between the United States and Pakistan, given the deep suspicions that the United States government evidently still holds about Pakistan's performance on terrorism, and given the views of the Pakistani public about the lack of reliability in the relationship?
I think there is still a very sound basis for that. We can have a very stable relationship and mutually respectable relationship. But what has recently happened over the last few years, and especially last month, is I'll be a bit frank. Instead of looking inwardly and try to find what has happened in Afghanistan in the last 10 years or 15 years, you're trying to find scapegoats in our region, especially Pakistan. Now, let me ask a question. The drug production in Afghanistan has gone up by 3,700%. The volume is $120 billion. Are we responsible for that? Daesh is there in 3 provinces. Proven presence. Are we responsible for that? 40% of territory has been lost to Taliban in the last 15 years. Are we responsible for that? Abdullah and President Ashraf Ghani, they are fighting with each other. I don't want to narrate the extent of their fight, because that will be undiplomatic. Are we responsible for that? More than 100,000 American troops were there. Over $1 trillion have been pumped into that economy. The corruption, the Taliban selling their weapons, Afghan soldiers selling their weapons in open market, in open auction to the Taliban. Are we responsible for that? No, these things are never spoken or said in the media over here. But these things are happening every day in Afghanistan.
So, Minister, I think that's a very fair line of argument. I really do. The rejoinder to it, of course, would be Pakistan is responsible for what happens on Pakistani soil. and the criticism of the record on containing terrorists, listed terrorists, individuals, groups, and the Afghan Taliban, which has access to Karachi and Quetta, is in the news also regularly from Pakistan, with Hafiz Saeed starting a political party and preaching in the open and so forth. So do you really think that the United States should accept that your efforts to defund, delegitimize these groups on Pakistani soil are the best you could possibly do?
No, I agree. We should continue our efforts in defanging or dismantling whatever remnants are there of the extremism or terrorism in Pakistan. I don't disagree with that. You have mentioned a name. It's a proscribed organization. The gentleman is under house arrest. But I agree with you that on that score, on that account, we have to do more. We have to do more. There are people in Pakistan who can be a liability in times of crisis for Pakistan and for the region. I agree with you. I don't disagree with that. But having said that, you must give us some allowance for what is happening within our borders. We have been, left with this legacy or this. Actually, a Punjabi word is coming to my mind, so I'm trying to find it.
Go ahead, use it.
Trying to translate that, what happened after you left Afghanistan in the 1980s, we were left to deal with this whatever was left of Afghanistan. And we are embroiled, we are stuck in this quicksand for last more than 26, 27 years. We must have made mistakes also. I'm not saying that we are saints or we are infallible. We must have made mistakes. But I think it's a collective mistake or sin we committed. You shouldn't have left the way you left that region way back in the early 90s or late 89. You thought the Cold War is over. We are the sole superpower, so we don't have to bother about Pakistan or this region. They can go to hell. And that is what happened. We went to hell. We went to hell, and we are still burning in that hell. And you must give us allowance for the reversal of the liberal Pakistan in the 1980s, in Pakistan in which I grew as a young lad or as a student or as a banker. It was very liberal, very pluralistic society, egalitarian society. But what we did to justify the jihad in 80, we reversed everything. We created a culture. No, let me be a bit frank. Now we are again talking of introducing books in madrasas or in schools, or changing curriculum or textbooks somewhere in the Muslim world. That will not work. It has not worked in the 80s. We rewrote our histories. Our heroes became non-heroes, and non-heroes became heroes because we wanted to justify jihad. We wanted to justify Qatal because that suited then our friends, our good friends, the Americans, because they wanted to kick out Soviet Union from Afghanistan. That was the objective. And we supported. And in the process, our ethos was destroyed. That is the problem. That is the tragedy. It makes my heart bleed. I belong to the generation which has seen the Pakistan of 50s and 60s and 70s, and which are looking at Pakistan of 90s and then the last decade. Some of these things have become irreversible for us. The people you are naming, the people you are talking about, the people President Trump is talking about, as politicians or as government officials, as people who are responsible for running the country, some of these things cannot be reversed overnight, because we inducted or we developed that sort of culture or ethos deliberately to justify an intervention, to become a proxy. Let me say it openly, to become a proxy, to legitimize that relationship which was perhaps not legitimate. Intervention in Afghanistan.
So, Minister,
we are paying a very heavy price. Let me tell the audience, we are paying a very heavy price. A whole generation of my country doesn't even remember what was Pakistan like 30 years back or 40 years back. It was a liberal country where everybody could breathe. Different sects could live together. Minorities could live together. Christians, Hindus, Muslims, Shia, Sunni, Barelvi, Wahhabi, they were all Pakistanis. Now we identify people, people change their names because they don't want to be identified by their sect or by it's a tragedy on national level. For God's sake, share this agony and this anguish with us. Don't blame us for Haqqanis or don't blame us for Hafiz Saids. These were the people who were your darlings. Just only 20 years, 30 years back. They were being dined and wined in White House. And now you say, go to hell, Pakistanis, because you are nurturing these, I don't want to use the word for them.
Yeah,
but this is what has happened.
So let's leave history and look to the future. In your talk,
the sense of history,
yes,
a keen sense of history. You cannot divorce history from the present or the future. You cannot. You cannot divorce history. History is an integral part of my present and my future.
You're talking to someone who can't write about the present without writing a 200,000-word book about the past.
Yeah, I know. I've gone through your book.
Basically.
I've gone through a book.
So we have
you are a very eminent writer. I have got great respect and regard for. But for God's sake, let me bear my pain or my insight before this audience. It is very easy to say Pakistan is supporting Haqqanis and Hafiz Said and Lashkar-e-Taiba.
Yeah.
They are liabilities. They are liabilities. I accept they are liabilities. But give us time to get rid of these liabilities because we do not have the assets to match those liabilities. You are increasing your liabilities further.
Right. So the reason I wanted to make a turn was because one way to help you have the time and the space to manage the problem in the way that you're arguing for would be to achieve stability, a reduction of violence, a political settlement in Afghanistan. And in your talk, you referred to the imperative of searching again for that settlement. But as you know, having been through these attempts before, both after the Soviets withdrew and during the Obama administration, sometimes with Pakistan's cooperation, sometimes talking independently to the Taliban, the international community has tried again and again to create a context for a successful settlement and has so far failed. In fact, I understand the Trump administration now wants to close the Taliban political office in Qatar. I don't know.
We didn't open that office.
I know. Do you think that's a wise decision?
No, it's up to you to judge the decision, not me.
So my question is, as a diplomat in training,
I'm an apprentice diplomat.
Yeah. So what do you think is the strategy, regional negotiation or other, that might have a chance to reduce violence and at least start creating a path towards something like a political settlement in Afghanistan?
I think you have said you've spelled out the solution which is needed over there, a regional solution with obviously US playing a very important part. We already have an arrangement, the quadrilateral arrangement, which is when the Murray talks were taking place, someone, I'm not blaming anyone, leaked this information that Mullah Omar is dead. The talks just evaporated. The second time the attempt was made, MAM was traveling in Iran, and the moment he entered our territory, he was killed. So his body was recovered from our soil. So again, the talks were gone. So there are people, there are elements who do not wish that these talks should be successful. Let's enter this process with total commitment and sincerity. I think we'll succeed. China, despite your strained relationship with Iran, Iran is a very important player. Most of these people are, part of the refugees, are part of the, from the south and from elsewhere in Afghanistan, they live in Iran. After Pakistan, the biggest chunk of refugees are in Iran. Turkey, Russian Federation, Chinese, of course, they're already there. They're all very important players. And US has stakes, and we recognize those stakes. You are a very big player in that region because of your presence for the last so many years over there. We would like you to leave that place with the satisfaction that you resolved the problem. You have brought peace to Afghanistan. We want you to have this, the crowning success, I would call it, that you can tell your people, you tell your electorate that we have succeeded and we have done what we went to Afghanistan. Any help you need in that, we are ready. If you want to choose the military option, we'll warn you not to choose that. That, in my opinion, that will be pursuing a folly. And the sooner you realize that it's a folly and it should not be pursued, the better it is for us, for you, and for other countries of the region. You are a historian, you just said,
Amateur.
Like I'm you're an accomplished historian. There is a historian, American historian, Barbara Tuchman or Barbara Tuchman.
Yeah.
What do you call it?
Tuchman, I guess.
Yeah, she has written a book, The March of Folly, and she has given 5 examples in that, where the world pursued follies, and they kept on pursuing despite the first paragraph of that book, narrates the whole book. That despite the realization that a folly is being pursued, but the governments still pursue those follies, like in Vietnam, like the Renaissance popes. These 3, 4, 5 examples are there. So in the same manner, in my opinion, my humble opinion as a student of history, there is a folly being pursued in Afghanistan. We have to change that approach.
And the folly is the search for a military solution.
Yeah, this is why, absolutely.
So, because my time is limited, I want to switch a little and talk about Pakistan's relationship with China, which you also mentioned in your talk. Of course, a very long, deep strategic partnership going back many decades.
We use that relationship for you.
I believe you played a useful role sometime. You really are interested in history. So my question is, given the scale and the ambition of the Chinese-Pakistan economic partnership and the corridor today, would you say that there is something new, something qualitatively different emerging in the partnership between Pakistan and China? Or is it simply bigger numbers on the same old relationship?
No, I think there is definitely something new to it. Let me give you a bit of context. When we took over the government, especially in the energy sector, we were in deep trouble. And we couldn't raise funds from international agencies or from our friends in US, or US was helping us in projects like Kurumtangi, Gomulzam Dam, Satpara. These are small projects, but they are in sensitive areas. Mm-hmm. So they have their political significance, they have their strategic significance. They were helping us in installing smart meters, which obviously help in improving the distribution system. So the international help was there, but the problem, the quantum of the problem, or the size of the problem, was so large that we needed much bigger help, and that came from Chinese. Now, $36 billion plus is being invested into power sector. Then about $8 to $9 billion are being invested in railway. Rest of the money is going to Gwadar port or the road infrastructure. I think after the completion of CPAC, and if the other countries are integrated to this network or to this corridor, there will be a quantum jump in development of this whole region. The connectivity will take place, and trade will develop, commercial relations will improve. And once there is trade and commercial relationships, the tensions will go down automatically, because then the money will be involved. And when there is money involved, when there is money to make, when there is profit to make, obviously the other part, the strategic part, or the animosities, they go down, because people have vested interest, and then public has vested interest. Then the groups which are making money out of it, the business, big business is making money. So there is a lot of pressure. I think it will ultimately bring the tensions of the region down. Tensions between Pakistan and Afghanistan, tensions between Iran and other countries, tension between us and India, tension between China and India. So I think if you look at the trade volume of this region, it's the lowest in any region in the world. Lowest. The figures are shameful. $1 million, $5 million, $8 million, this sort of. Now, this is something, I think this is definitely a qualitative improvement on our relationship, which we previously held with the Chinese. Chinese have been very reliable friends, but I'm not comparing our relationship with the relationship we have with Chinese. They are not at your cost, or our relationship with you is not at their cost.
It's not personal for me.
No, I'm just trying to explain, I'm just trying to explain. And we have, in last 5-6 years, we have achieved substantial improvement in our relationship with the Russian Federation also. We are, after the Americans stopped selling us armaments, we are buying armaments from there. The helicopters which we are using, or we are about to use in CT effort, those are Russian helicopters which we'll be using. And despite the war which was being waged against terrorists on our soil, we were not allowed to buy F-16, old F-16s from Jordan. So I think a lot of unfairness, but
do you think
I'm your guest and you're my host? Let's not talk about
but in
unpleasantness.
the wider picture of great power jockeying, you mentioned China, Russia, the United States in the same paragraph there. Are we, in your opinion, in what Fareed Zakaria called a post-American world? Is part of your calculation that the United States is in retreat?
Fareed Zakaria is a very eminent scholar. I'm just nobody, an apprentice diplomat, nothing else, and a political worker. But let me, there will be one day a post-American scenario, one day. And, civilizations are like human beings. They have their youth, they have their middle age, and then they have their own, like seasons. They have spring, and summer, and then autumn and winter. So all the big civilizations like Romans and Greeks and Arabs and Islamic and Europeans, they have withered away ultimately. So, but there is no imminent danger to your civilization.
Thank you.
Let me assure you. Let me assure you, there is no imminent danger. You are there for a long time, and you'll survive. But you must, as I said, don't pursue follies.
Well, we have a polarized society here in the United States, as you know, and certainly...
That's a bad sign.
Yes, but also rising bigotry and bias toward Muslim Americans, who constitute only 1% of our population, but who are now targets of hate crimes and various kinds of campaigns and misunderstandings.
Muslims are facing that all over the world.
Yeah, so when you look at the United States, I mean, the Pakistani diaspora here, you mentioned in your talk, is a very talented one, as you know, very well educated, very prosperous, but now caught up in this wave of anti-Muslim bigotry that we see in the U.S. How does that play back into Pakistan? Is it well understood? Is it in the news? Is it on the TV? Is it part of public discourse?
It is not. We have too much of,
trouble of your own.
We have our local shows going on. The politics and what happened last couple of months, and even before that. But I must tell you, we are very broad-minded people. We are large-hearted people. A slight gesture of friendship from your side will make a huge difference. What is happening to Muslims in America, or what is happening to Muslims elsewhere in the developed world, You know, this, let me explain this just for in half a minute or a minute. You know, there are flashpoints all over the world which mostly involve Muslims. Myanmar, Kashmir, Palestine, Iraq, Sham, Afghanistan, Libya. All these flashpoints are basically Muslims are there and they are oppressed. You are a large power with large resources, with a large heart, you know. You've spent trillions of dollars in these areas on destructive activity. War is a destructive activity, whether it's waged for a good cause or a bad cause. You know, I'll not go into that moral debate. But if you had pumped 1/5 of that into like Afghanistan or other areas of Middle East, I think the dividends as goodwill from Muslims in my region, in Middle East, in North Africa, in Far East, would have been much, much bigger. Much, much bigger. You can't even imagine. People will kiss you, you know, your hands, your forehead.
They do that in Saudi Arabia still.
Yeah. But you know, I personally think, I don't know. I don't want to go into that argument. But this pursuance of militaristic approach, I think it has been proven to be counterproductive. You have to tinker it in a way where it has more political substance in it than the military substance. You know.
So I have
this
time.
is how I feel.
Yeah. I have time for maybe 2 more questions before I go to the index card. So if there are new ones that someone wants to bring forward, someone can collect them while I ask my last 2. I see a couple of hands up. I don't know if, yeah, someone's coming from the back there. So India, your party, Nawaz Sharif, was one of the pioneers of attempting rapprochement, you know, many years ago, a couple of different times. You spoke about it in your remarks, the frustrations. There was a period in the late Musharraf time where there were negotiations that seemed to ripen for some kind of economic opening and a détente around the big irritants in the relationship. And yet here we are, still talking about the same missed opportunity. And if you go to Delhi, of course, you hear a certain strain of Indian foreign policy saying, well, Pakistan's in the rearview mirror. We're moving in another direction. What's achievable with India, do you think, in the next 5 or 10 years? And why does India matter to Pakistan anymore?
No, you're saying Pakistan doesn't matter to India anymore.
I'm saying that if you go to Delhi, you'll hear certain strains of foreign policy saying, oh, we have Pakistan's in the rearview mirror. You know, it's all about China and East Asia for us and the United States.
But they keep looking in the rearview mirror. That could be fatal, you know. You know,
so how's it look out of the Pakistani windshield?
Nawaz Sharif staked his political career for achieving or stabilizing our relationship with India. I won't say that it can be pleasant or a lovey-dovey relationship overnight, but stabilizing our relationship with India. And Nawaz Sharif was called Modi's friend and a traitor by our political opponent in Pakistan. Despite that, Nawaz Sharif still pursued that objective. With all sincerity and with all commitment, even today he thinks that friendship with India will bring dividends to both the countries and it will bring lasting peace to the subcontinent. We are people from the same stock. Partition in 1947 created two new countries. And we have a problem of Kashmir. Day before yesterday or 2 days back, Excellency Sushma Swaraj said that events have taken over the UN resolutions. Events do not take over UN resolutions. Even today, 7 boys were killed in the Kashmir University in Srinagar. Even today. Now those students. They are not on scholarship from Pakistan and studying over there and getting killed. They are local boys, they're young boys who were killed over there. hundreds of boys and girls have died. And what is going on over there? And let me give you some figures from Ministry of Internal Affairs in India. You know, in 2001, there were about 3,700 incursions from Pakistani side, you know, border interventions, border crossing from our side to there. This is their figure. Till last month, the figure of 2017 was 31. So border incursions, according to their figure, have gone down by almost 99%. You know. And if you look at the list of the terrorist organizations they have in their country, their total list of about 66 or 68, 4 or 6 out of those terrorist organizations are related to Pakistan. Rest are their local, you know, terrorist organizations, whether they are in Chhattisgarh or Nagaland or Manipur or somewhere else, you know. So blaming us for their troubles or whatever happens in India, I think it will not take us anywhere. We blame them and they blame us. We say that Sanjota Express was burnt by their people and the people are being tried and the justice is not being done. Then we say that we have Kulbhushan Yadav, which is a conclusive evidence of their supporting terrorism on our side. They blame us for Uri and Bombay. So this will go on. This recrimination and accusation, counter accusation. But
So
there must be an initiative which at least bring us to a negotiating table. At least we should start talking. We have a line of communication between our military operation on Pakistan side and India side. We have contacts between our NSA and their NSA, but this has to be widened. And what is happening in Kashmir is of very this cause is very dear to Pakistan. This is something which cannot be just thrown away or forgotten. It's there and it's burning and people are giving their lives for it. So how can someone expect from Pakistan to abandon Kashmir? This cannot happen, you know. Yep. But you know, they had a stalemate on border with China. Well, they have a volume of about $78 billion of trade with China. So both sides are making money. That is what I was referring to. Once this CPAC comes to life, and the countries of the region are interconnected and there is connectivity, the interdependence, the commercial interdependence and the trade interdependence will force the countries of the region to find solution for their outstanding issues.
So I have some very good questions from the audience. Some were so brilliant that they were already questions I've asked, so I've set them down. But I wanted to ask one last one, a matter of sort of Pakistani domestic affairs, but of interest to U.S. foreign policy. You have elections coming sooner rather than later. What's the foreign policy difference between PMLN and PTI at this stage, would you say?
I would call myself, if I'm allowed that indulgence, that we are much more liberal than PTI in political sense, on foreign policy front. They appeal more to people who are on religious fringes sometimes. Even today I read a statement by PTI leader. But let's not, I don't want to wash our dirty linen on this international forum, you know. We have enough of that back home in Pakistan. But I personally believe that our foreign policy is not, it's not against anybody, you know. It's not directed towards anybody or any country, I should say. We sincerely want to achieve peace. Last week I met Afghan foreign minister, both of them I met. President Ashraf Ghani couldn't meet our Prime Minister. I won't go into the reasons, but the fact remains that I had a very good conversation with both the gentlemen, very good conversation, and I think we can find a way out of this tragedy which has been perpetuated in Afghanistan. All we need is that they have their political problems in Afghanistan, some genuine problems in Afghanistan, and a lot of people. One of our diplomats in Afghanistan, if I'm allowed to say, defined the Afghan situation that Afghans are at peace when they are at war. So this is, the Afghan leadership, Afghan hierarchy, or the ruling elite, somehow or the other, their vested interests are entrenched into ongoing unrest in Afghanistan. I would say politely. I won't say it. I'm saying it diplomatically.
Really?
Yes.
You call that diplomatic? So, U.S. Secretary of Defense Mattis said that the U.S.-India ties, which he wanted to deepen in Afghanistan, should not affect U.S. ties with Pakistan. Do you agree with that?
I'll believe him. I'll believe him.
You do believe it?
Yeah,
No.
I do believe.
They can proceed on independent tracks.
That can take place, and but we don't see any military role or any strategic role of India in Afghanistan. But if U.S. wants to have a relationship with India, not on our expense, why should we have any problem if it is not on our expense?
Do you think that India is using its presence in Afghanistan to undermine Pakistan's stability?
Yes, that is correct. And whatever economic development or economic development India has achieved or India has invested in Afghanistan, that is on our border. They have several, I don't know how many consulates they have on our border.
4, sir.
4 on our border. And then they have most of the investments they are doing is in the Pashtun areas, bordering Pakistani border. So that is something which alarms us. And then most of these people we are kicking, like Lashkar-e-Jhangvi and others, who are being after this operation which was launched last 4 years back in 2014. Most of the cadres which were pushed out of Pakistan, they found a pattern in RAW or in Indian intelligence agencies or Afghan intelligence agencies. So what is going on in Pakistan, what we are being blamed for, having safe havens on our soil, we believe, and this is admitted by the Afghan government, that our TTP, they have safe havens on Afghan soil, and they operate from there on Afghan soil. The gentleman, I shouldn't call him gentleman, I'm sorry, the terrorist who killed the children in APS in Peshawar is in Afghan custody. The NSA told me that we can exchange that terrorist with the terrorists you have. So that is something which is Kulbhushan Yadav, is confessed, and that's something which is very conclusive. So we do blame. Let me tell you, in last 3 days in my constituency, I live on the working boundary. Sialkot is on working boundary. 7 women have died, civilians.
From shelling.
From shelling. Cattle were targeted. These electricity transformers were targeted. Because in those villages on the border, on the zero line, their main economy is milk selling. Dairy is their main economy. So they try to hurt them by killing the buffaloes or cows.
So, speaking of attacks on civilians or the risk of civilian deaths in border wars, here's a question from the audience. What is your view on U.S. drone attacks contributing to increasing terrorism in Pakistan and the general sentiment of anger and distrust toward the U.S.?
In the past, the frequency was much more. 6 years, 7 years back, now the frequency has gone down substantially, gone down almost hardly any drone attacks. Only we had, I think, about 2 weeks, 3 weeks back. That itself is an evidence that the terrorism on Pakistani soil has gone down. The allegation of safe havens or allegation of us nurturing the terrorists, that is no more, at least I would say to the level which is being said by the politicians here or politicians in Afghanistan. It's more of a rhetoric, but the drone attacks have gone down maybe many times over the last few years. That itself is a huge evidence.
So I have sort of two related questions, or sort of related. One is whether the China-Pakistan economic corridor is really worth it. China prefers to use its own companies and hire their own people. Of course, you see in the pattern of Chinese investment in other parts of the world, such as Africa, some local backlash against the sort of expeditionary nature of some of these projects. So a version of the question would be, how will Chinese investment in this massive set of programs really become Pakistan's wealth as opposed to China's? And then there's a related question which goes to your energy subject before, which is Robert Laidley asks if you can say a word about the TAPI pipeline and how that figures in your vision of Pakistan's energy security looking ahead.
It's a very valuable contribution. I was in Turkmenistan about 3 weeks back. We are looking forward to a TAPI pipeline. It will be a huge contribution to offset our energy shortage, especially the gas. There's no doubt about it, and we are actively pursuing that. Afghanistan is our partner in that, and that will obviously, in my opinion, in our opinion, it will affect in a very pleasant way our relationship with Afghanistan, because they'll have stakes in that. Same it goes for CASA also. They have stakes in that, So if such projects are promoted, our relationship between Afghanistan, we have a meeting on the 1st in Dubai. I'm supposed to go there. I've asked somebody
on TAPI, you mean?
No, on CASA.
On CASA.
CASA. So these two projects are of huge political, strategic, and obviously economic value to us.
Well, I don't want to get too down into the energy minister weeds, but you did talk in your remarks about how far you'd come in delivering electricity and closing the gap leading to all those blackouts and shortages. So what were the elements of supply that bridged that gap? I'm sure there were elements of efficiency and
yes.
Reduction of demand, but where did the new supply come from?
New supply, we have set up 3 plants based on our LNG. Total production of those 3 plants is 3,600 megawatts. Then we have another plant, coal-based plant, 1,320 megawatt in Saiwal. So these 4 plants, they amount to about 6,000 megawatts. But in addition to that, we have installed almost about 700 megawatts nuclear based generation. Then we have added this hydel energy also. So total energy which will by December or by January, the total addition of energy over 2014 will be almost 10,600 megawatts.
10,600 megawatts since 2014.
To 2014. That's substantial, and you're absolutely right that some of this energy was made available due to efficiency which has been achieved. substantial efficiency, you know. We have saved almost last year, 15-16, not 16-17, 15-16, almost more than $1 billion over increase in efficiency and better distribution system, installing more grid stations, making the supply more reliable. So distribution, transmission and generation, all the three facets of energy, they've been taken care of.
One of our audience on Twitter asks, can you discuss Pakistan's relations with others, specifically France and Germany, and also your recent trip to China, Turkey, and Russia? So that's a lot of questions packed into one index card.
I'll try to wrap up in one reply. I had a very good visit last week, visit to Beijing and Tehran and Ankara, and found full support of what I've said just now, finding a solution which is political and more less military and more political solution. And as for France and Germany, we have a good relationship with them. Absolutely no problems. I think Germany has a very important role in EU to play, and even France. Now that Britain is divorced or partially divorced or separated from rest of the European market or European Union. With UK, they have been our colonial masters. So we are nostalgic about them.
You are nostalgic about being, well, there's certainly a very large diaspora and obviously very close structural relations.
Very close. We met, the Prime Minister and me, we met Prime Minister of UK at the reception in the High Commission. And we had a very useful chat with the Prime Minister. We met the Foreign Secretary also. We have a good relationship with the Europeans and UK.
So maybe one last question, and then we'll wrap up and let everyone get out and enjoy the late summer air here in the beginning of autumn, a new part of our world here. Kashmir, someone observes, there's been a little back and forth between Pakistan and India at the UN this week. Some sharp exchanges. So there has been, as you said, pattern of violence along the line of control and the de facto border. What's next over the next year or two?
That's a question which bothers us also. This sort of atmosphere or this sort of it cannot be perpetuated. This has to be taken care of this situation, because two nuclear powers with this level of animosity can be very dangerous. This level of animosity is ever rising over the last 2 years. When it becomes politically expedient for the rulers for fetching votes, they bash Pakistan or they bash Muslims, or cow has become an issue. It's their belief. I have no comment on that. I respect their belief. But for killing and lynching people in India, cow is being used, or they are exporters of beef. India is a big exporter of beef to Middle East. I used to eat Indian beef when I was living in UAE, and now they kill people for the beef. So this dichotomy or this contradiction, for the sake of fetching votes, they have captured UPJ just because of this baggage which the Prime Minister of India is carrying from Gujarat. He's in Delhi now. He should realize that. Huge country. I don't want to. It's the atmosphere is already vitiated between our two countries. I don't want to say anything which will further vitiate that. But the fact remains that if I'm trying to fetch vote on something which is negative, And then I'm not a politician. I'm just a hate monger or something. Somebody who's trying to exploit the base instincts of the human beings to perpetuate his power or to capture power. That's not human. That's inhuman. In my lingo or in my training, I'm in politics for 27 years. I'm a parliamentarian for 27 years, and previously my father was parliamentarian for 45 years. So this is something which is abominable. This should be abolished. The way BJP and its leadership is targeting minorities all over the place, and the way they have recently tackled the issue of Myanmar. That is inhuman. These people are stateless almost. Myanmar as they are butchering them. Bangladesh is not accepting them. India is not accepting them. It's sad. They are human beings. They are not something which is trash or something to be discarded, like the way they are being discarded. So we wish to have a robust and a very meaningful relationship with India, but on equal terms, on mutual respect, and we cannot bargain on Kashmir. That is something we have to coexist. We have to find a way, and that way can only be found by negotiating and talking to each other instead of shunning each other.
Well, on behalf of the audience, let me thank you for being so open and for spending this time with us. I'm really grateful. I think you're well on your way to being a fully formed diplomat. Yes. Thank you again.
I'll submit my report card to you.
Yes.